Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 probably remains the greatest aviation mystery in history. The plane with 239 people on board is still missing.
No matter how much you try to move on or how much you try to close that chapter, it will never go away because you will always wonder.
And the question remains, where did it go? Late at night on March 7th, local time in Washington, D.C., but March 8th in the Pacific, I got a call as I was driving home. And it was from the news desk saying, we've got a missing Boeing 777. We need you back in the studio immediately.
Tom Costello covers aviation for us. Tom, what else do we know about all this?
The challenge this morning is simply to find this plane. I had covered an awful lot of emergency landings and crashes. This was baffling from the beginning.
Experts agree that what we are witnessing is unprecedented in modern aviation history.
Malaysia 370 was flying the red-eye from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. When it simply went out of radio contact, it left Kuala Lumpur after midnight, and it was supposed to fly through Malaysian airspace, up over Vietnamese airspace, on towards China. The last radio conversation was at 1:19 a.m. when the captain, Zahiri Shah, acknowledged that he was supposed to leave the radio contact with Malaysia and then switch over to Vietnamese controllers.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
That's all very standard, very normal conversations.
We want to bring in Sarah Bajak. Her companion, Philip Wood, was on Flight 370.
On the morning of March 8th, we were at the airport to pick him up, and he wasn't there. And the boards went blank. All the communication shut down. The airport wouldn't say anything.
As the hours ticked by, it became clear nobody knew where this plane was.
It wasn't until sometime early afternoon that I got a call from Malaysian Airlines as the next of kin, telling me that they had lost contact with the airplane and they actually had no idea where it was.
A massive multinational search is in full swing for a Malaysian jetliner that vanished not quite 36 hours ago.
This initial search started as a hopeful mission. It took a week or more before finally this international effort started focusing on the southern Indian Ocean, and that included the United States, Australia, Malaysia, and many other governments. The initial search zone was massive, hundreds of thousands of square miles of ocean.
The southern Indian Ocean is one of the most remote parts of our planet. You start south out of Malaysia, it's nearly Antarctica before you find the next bit of land.
In 2015, the first pieces of Malaysia 370 began washing ashore. The first piece was found on Reunion Island.
What appears to be a piece of wreckage from Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It washed ashore on a remote island.
When they first started finding the debris, my reaction was, who knows if it's real or not? Like, let's first of all see if it's real.
That piece of wing found washed up on a remote island beach, conclusively part of the plane that disappeared without a trace.
And then in 2016, an American by the name of Blaine Gibson, who had been consumed by Malaysia Flight 370, wanted to solve the mystery. He was paying attention to what investigators said were the likely paths, the ocean currents for debris. And as he was walking along the beach off the coast of Africa, he found a piece of 370. There still is no concrete proof of what happened to this plane, other than they're very confident it went into the Indian Ocean because, of course, the debris has washed ashore exactly where investigators projected it might based on the ocean currents. Finally, after almost 3 years of searching, the governments of Malaysia and China and Australia halted the search in January of 2017. They had come up with nothing.
Now, an American company claims it can find the missing plane in just 3 months.
In January of 2018, the American company Ocean Infinity offered to start a new search. They would not get paid if they did not find the plane. Ocean Infinity brought its underwater drones into the investigation, trying to focus on a specific arc where they believed that the wreckage of the plane might be. But again, they came up empty.
Initially, I was very, very optimistic that we would find the wreckage. over time and over these ensuing 10 years, we've had to come to the realization of how difficult this is.
Sooner or later, we're going to not only find the remnants of the plane more holistically, but we're going to find out what happened, at least in part.
Malaysia 370 was supposed to fly straight to Beijing, but after the radio communication between controllers and the captain suddenly went dead, we now know that the plane over the South China Sea did a mysterious U-turn. It flew back over the Malaysian peninsula. It cut north, and then in a very strange turn, it then headed south, well into the Indian Ocean and eventually into the southern Indian Ocean. A lot of the focus has been on the captain, Zahiri Shah, who is a veteran of Malaysia Airlines. And we know the pilot was very experienced, 53 years old, with 18,000 hours of flying. The FBI got a hold of his home computers and found that he had practiced on a flight simulator flying into the southern Indian Ocean, pretty close to the same route that we now know Malaysia Flight 370 took.
When you look objectively at the evidence, you have to have motive and opportunity and knowledge to get the airplane to fly the path that it did. And there are very, very few people in the world that would have had the opportunity plus the knowledge. It narrows down pretty quickly to the captain.
The leading theory continues to be that the captain may have deliberately hijacked this plane, depressurized the plane so that everybody inside the plane fell silent and eventually died, and that he, with a mask on, might have intentionally flown this plane into the South Indian Ocean. Why? We simply don't know. However, that has been a theory that has been pursued by the FBI, by the police in Malaysia, as well as Australian investigators. You can imagine how frustrated the families had been through this entire experience. No sign of their loved ones, no sign of the plane.
Well, it feels terrible on a variety of levels because putting closure to the loss of a loved one is hard by itself. But then you have the lack of evidence of what happened, so there really isn't closure.
It's been hard for me when I got married. I really missed the presence of my mother. It was hard for me during my pregnancy. I longed for my mother.
Part of loss is that you lose everything around that person too. So not only did I lose Philip, the person who I loved, but I lost the life that we shared together.
I think that only once we know what happened, only then can a true form of healing begin.
We all have the same vested interest, is that we want to know what happened, and I want to see whoever's responsible for it be held accountable.
Aviation does not do well with mysteries. Somewhat like the Amelia Earhart airplane, I suspect that we will continue to look for it. The fact that we couldn't find the wreckage really prompted the International Civil Aviation Organization and others to push for global tracking, where we track the airplanes now, no matter where they are in the world.
New aircraft designs have been required to have a means of recovering the flight recorders or the information that they have before they sink into the water.
The mental health of pilots and how we assess those things, those have all also been increased because of MH370.
Well, now an American tech company could finally give the families of the missing some answers.
Ocean Infinity has approached the Malaysian government to search again, refining the search zone using more advanced marine robotic drones.
As far as Malaysian government is concerned, we are committed to that search, and the search must go on.
We have to realize that this is a very difficult search. The water's very deep. It's not the best mapped part of the world. And as a result, if they have new evidence or if they have a new area that they want to search, I would encourage them to do so. We're certainly not going to find MH370 if we don't look.
In a statement, Ocean Infinity said it has been innovating with technology and robotics to further advance its ocean search capabilities and working with outside experts as well to narrow the scope of the search zone.
If a new search with these new coordinates that they think they've come up with could find the plane, then the mystery can be solved and we can all put closure to things the world can understand what happened.
The families really want closure to this. To find the wreckage and to give them closure is something that we as a society should do.
Nightly Films is sponsored by Pfizer.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.